Welcome to the CrossFit Alioth Unleashed podcast, where we discuss health and fitness, mindset and business with your host, Coach Lloyd. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Alioth Unleashed, where we post updates and teasers on our upcoming guests and podcasts. Here we go, another episode of the Alioth Unleashed podcast, and today I have a member of the gym with me. Her name is Jo Farrer.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome on my podcast.
I'm excited.
Jo Farrer, Mo Farrer, same. She runs just like him.
I wish.
Right, Jo, let's just get started with telling people who you are.
Who I am.
Who is Jo Farrer?
So I'm Jo. I'm a personal trainer and online nutrition coach. Been in Dubai for 7.5 years now. Originally from the UK.
Whereabouts in the UK are you from?
The Lake District, Cumbria.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Fellow Northerner. Yeah.
It's a nice place around there.
Lovely. I work with a lot of clients in different aspects, which we'll get onto.
Mm-hmm.
Originally worked in events for 10 years.
Damn.
4.5 years in Dubai and then 6 years in the UK. And then decided at the age of 29 to completely change my career, which was delightful.
I mean, for anybody listening who's done this and just had a change of career, it's pretty daunting. Like, what made you, take that leap, and what inspired you to become like this health nutrition coach?
Yeah, it was quite gradual. So when I moved, I'd always been into sport back in the UK, played a lot of netball, show jumped, been like very active, but never got into a gym or didn't really know anything about like gym training, fitness training in that sense. And then when I moved to Dubai, I wasn't playing netball, wasn't being very active, definitely going out a lot more. And I was like, I need to find my thing here, because I kind of didn't really want to get into netball. I'd played quite a lot in the UK and I was kind of like done with that. So I joined a gym, and I would be that person who would go to the gym, sit on my phone, literally like walk on the treadmill for 5 minutes and then like leave, because I just didn't know what to do. And then I joined another gym, which was more, it wasn't a CrossFit gym, but it was like a functional fitness, weight training, strength training. And that was where I really, really got into training and really enjoyed it. And then I'd come home, learn more about it, read about nutrition. And then that kind of spiraled a few other things. I started reading more, got really into personal development. And I saw the benefit of that in my life. And I had 2 really good coaches at that gym. And they just like really inspired me, the impact they were having on everyone in that gym. I was like, I want that. I'm not fulfilled in my job anymore. So then I was like, right, first step, I'm going to do my personal training qualification. So that was 2019, which, as we know, don't really learn that much. 6 weeks of fairly average.
That's all it was?
Yeah.
6-week course?
Yeah. And that was just 2 days, so weekends. I did it while I was working. So I would do like 8 till 4 on the weekend, the course. It was like, 12 days. And that was just like really average. Like, I enjoyed it because I did learn a little bit, but if you've just done that, you're definitely not qualified to work with people.
No, that's crazy, because when I did my PT course, back at home, it was 2 year. It was like a whole 2 year course.
Really?
At college, yeah. Before I went on to uni.
Yeah, no, this was like, and this was a UK qualification, UK personal training.
And what did you come out with that?
It was like a level 2 and a level 3 in personal training.
What level 2 and what? Like,
that's it.
what was the governing body?
YMCA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's all it is now.
Yeah.
Essentially, you can do it in 6 weeks. So I did that while I was working, and then that was like the November of 2019. Was bored in my job. Had a really good job. I worked in media for ITP Media Group here in Dubai, which was, I was head of events for Time Out, Grazia, GQ, Harper's Bazaar. So on paper, it was like a great job that loads of people would love. And I did love it for a long time. But I just knew I always wanted to work for myself, but I just didn't know what that was in. So that was like 2019. And
did you surprise yourself going into fitness? Because like you said, like, you'd not really been into a gym.
No.
You'd done some sport, netball and show jumping, right? But
yeah, I think I surprised my family.
That transition to events into being a health coach.
Yeah.
Like,
it was a big jump.
It seemed surprising.
It was kind of gradual as well, though, because I was getting very into like my own training and my own nutrition and just my own lifestyle as well, and like personal development and just deciding what I wanted out of life.
Did you just wake up one morning and think, right, I want to be a better human, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to work on myself? Like,
no,
how did that happen?
It was inspired by those 2 coaches at that gym. That was that. I got fitter. I got stronger. I stopped looking at kind of exercise as a way to lose weight and a way to get stronger, and nutrition as well. So it started off with, I wanted to lose a little bit of weight, and that's why I went to the gym. And I think that's a lot of my clients. They come to the gym or they start training because that's their goal. And then I just got really into nutrition, really into the lifestyle side of stuff, really into like the psychology of behavior change and what makes people do things. And then, decided to quit my job 6 months later in the middle of the pandemic. I had a 3 months notice period. At that point, I didn't have a single client.
Mm-hmm.
So I used those 3 months to build up my client base over that summer of like COVID. And obviously we just came out of COVID, so Dubai was getting back to normal. People could go to the gym. And I think as well it was kind of the perfect time in the sense of a lot of people who had never been into fitness were, I don't know if you found this as well, but were starting to think like, I need to sort myself out because after what happened with COVID, a lot of people who were obese, overweight, weren't healthy, weren't fit, it affected them a lot worse. So I think that was kind of a really good timing as well.
How did you go about getting your client base then? Because you've gone from COVID, being at home, stuck, like everyone has, and then you've had to go out and basically start your new chapter in your life, which was being a health coach or nutritionist or coach, whatever you want to call it. How did you go about getting a client base, starting that? And
because I never worked in a gym either, and that was something that I didn't want to do. I always wanted to have my own thing. So I started off training friends for free. Okay. So just as I'd finished qualified, I did like a 6-week thing for a couple of friends, a couple of people that I knew. For me to then start to work with people, start to understand, like, just even communication. Like, that's one of the biggest things I think about training people and working with people is knowing how to communicate to different types of people and knowing what different people need. So it started off with friends, social media. They were basically my two things, like friends, referrals, just starting with social media. So people that I had on my Instagram, I think I had like probably like 800 followers at the time, of mainly like friends and family or just like random people. And then it was people getting in touch with that. Facebook groups were actually really good. Like in Dubai, I got quite a few. If people were asking for trainers on Facebook groups, like clients or friends would recommend me, and I got quite a few clients with that. Nice. And then once you've got a couple of people and they're having a good time and they're seeing results, it was just referrals from there. So that was kind of like the start of it. And then mainly personal training then, and a little bit of nutrition on the side.
Was the personal training one-on-one in a gym, or was it online?
One-on-one in a gym, in the marina. And then I started to do my nutrition course. So I did like a 12-month nutrition course to become a nutritionist, even though that term doesn't actually mean anything, because anyone can really call themselves a nutritionist. But I got that background behind me, started working more with clients online as well. And then now, here we are, 2.5 years in, 3 years this September.
Are you loving it?
Yeah, love it.
Love what you do.
Love what I do. The freedom, working with people and actually having like a positive impact on people's lives. That was the main thing that I wanted to have. And that's, I get that every day, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good. You have some sort of niche, isn't it? So like, who do you work with? Who do you help out?
So I mainly work with women who have kind of dieted for a long period of time and not got to where they want to be. And with that, so people come to me wanting to lose weight. I see it as my job then to educate them on the basics of nutrition and what like a healthy lifestyle looks for them. Because what's healthy for one person might not be healthy for another person when it comes to like intent and psychology and everything. I work with people who, like my job is to get them to where they want to be in terms of their body composition, but then teach them how to maintain that without super restrictive behaviours. So tracking calories, for instance, is a great thing. It's great for an amount of time for a lot of people, but no one needs to do that. Like none of my clients need to do that for the rest of their life. They're not elite athletes. They don't need to track every single macro. So it's teaching them the tools, but also then getting to a point where we can remove those tools, but still maintain habits and behaviours. So building a lot of self-trust in themselves, that they can go out for a weekend, enjoy themselves, and that's not going to like derail them for the next 3 weeks.
Apart from the nutrition side of things, what else is it you cover with with your clients?
Cover a lot of behaviour change. So like cognitive flexibility, for instance, like how like to not let one thing derail you. Body image is a lot of stuff that I work on with a lot of my clients. So people think that body image is just how they see themselves, but actually it's how they think, how they feel, and how they act in relation to themselves. So look at that. People's relationship with their body and people's relationship with food as well. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned in the last 2 years is if somebody has been dieting for a long period of time without getting anywhere, I'm talking like 15, 20 years for a lot of the people that I work with at the start, that's going to have such a negative impact on their relationship with their food and their body. So it's not that another 6-week, 8-week transformation is going to fix that. That needs to be unpicked, and they need to understand that it's likely an emotional response. It's not a response to how they actually look. It's because they're not managing their emotions correctly.
Yeah. So you're not just training your clients physically, you're training them in all sort of aspects of their life, right?
Yeah, and just helping them to like challenge their thoughts. Like I use like a bit of like motivational interviewing, so for them to start to reframe things, so they can go out, they can have a weekend. Say for instance, they didn't act in the way that they wanted to that weekend, that they can then question that themselves. Hello, someone this weekend. They can then start to unpick that themselves, and it just because they did things that they weren't proud of doesn't need to mean they hate on themselves for that. It's like, okay, this happened, but I can separate myself from this, and I can learn from those quote unquote mistakes.
Yeah. So how much time do you spend with your clients, like talking to them about these sort of stuff? Because there's one side which is, you know, it might seem to people the easy side, but we train people one-on-one in the gym, whatever it might be, or online. Like, apart from that side, you must, is it like a Zoom call? Is it like a meeting? Do you meet them and talk to them for like an hour or what? Like,
yeah, so we have a coaching call every single week, where before that they'll fill out like what I call like a weekly check-in, a weekly review. And that's quite a lot of detail. So, and I will not get on a call with people if they haven't filled out that form, because I need to know what I'm coming to, and I need to know what they need from me that day. Like some days, like when someone's had a great week, that call is like a bit of reassurance, a bit of support, a bit of a pat on the back, a bit of like, okay, what's your like week looking like this week? But for some people who've had a shocking week where nothing's gone right, nothing's gone to plan, there'll be a lot of resistance from one, even filling out that form. Like we all know that we've done things that we're not like super proud of. The last thing you want to do is write that down on paper and see it in flesh, and let alone someone else to see it. Yeah. So it's one, giving them the support and like the safe space to be like, okay, this is a no judgment zone. Write whatever you need to write on this form, and then I can turn up to that call prepared for what they need, with tools. So like I might say like, hey, actually, after our call, I'm going to send you this resource on that. I've like a video that I've done on emotional systems, for instance. That's one I did recently, where a client was using food as her only coping mechanism to deal with like negative emotions. So just for them to understand that, one, it's normal behaviour. Like they're not the only person that does these kind of behaviours. Yeah. Zoom calls, coaching calls, and then building little resources. That's what I'm starting to build up now, is as and when people have a certain thing. If someone's asking me a question, 9 times out of 10, another client is going to ask me the same question, or struggle with the same things. Like that emotional systems thing, I've sent that out to a few different clients now because it's been relevant. So yeah, a mixture through coaching calls, resources, and then just generally like through, like I have a coaching app that I use, just speaking to them through there as well.
Is that your own coaching app?
No, I use Trainerize.
Okay. I've never heard
It's
of
like
that.
a platform basically, like, not like WhatUp, but similar kind of concept, but built more for like habit coaching and that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. So let's move on to this like personal development side that you spoke about before. How would you define personal development? Like, what is it?
Interesting question. I think it's bettering yourself. Like the way that it worked for me was I got into like reading a lot of books about like behavior change, habits, a bit of psychology stuff, but just how to create a life that you want to live. That's kind of how I define it now, and just trying to be like 1% better every single day. And I think it's something that once, like I think I fell into this trap though, where I read too much and don't act on it all. I think like you can get into this trap, and I've stopped like reading as many books now because I was just like reading these books and find them really interesting, but you can only implement a certain amount of stuff at one time. So it's like reading a book like Atomic Habits, for instance, James Clear, great book. Most people have, like, especially in like fitness, have probably read that book. But rather than just reading it and thinking like, okay, that was cool, it's like, okay, how do I apply this to my life, and how can I actually, then for me, how can I help clients through this as well?
Yeah, you can learn too much at once, right?
Yeah, and I think you can just get addicted to this like reading books, listen to podcasts, this like loop of when actually you can probably learn the most from your own life.
Oh, for sure.
And like journaling, for instance, is something that I love and like get a lot of clients to do. It's even just at the end of every week, if journaling sounds a little bit like woo-woo for you, like I said to a client this morning, I was like, if you were trying to grow a business, you would do a business review, probably monthly or maybe quarterly, but definitely quarterly. This review, because he was like resisting a little bit of my like journaling, and I was like, okay, it's a weekly review. If you were wanting to save money, grow a business, any of that, you would review your progress every single week, every single month, and that's exactly what we're doing now. Reviewing your life. And it's not just about thinking like, oh, I had a bit of a bad weekend this weekend, I'm going to like quote unquote try harder next week, because there's no strategy there. There's no action, there's no plan. It's like understanding like, okay, this went wrong because of this. Take responsibility for it. So own it. Like, you chose to do that. No one forced those drinks down your neck. No one forced that down your neck, or no one like forced you not to go to the gym, or whatever you might have done or not done. So it's like, get curious about your own behaviour. And I think that's a lot of personal development, curiosity.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find that most of your clients come to you for the training or for the personal development side? Or is it a bit of mix?
A bit of mix, mainly like nutrition. And I think it's kind of that whole like thing where, you know, people will come to me for fat loss, but I know that I need to give them other things as well. Yeah. I need to improve their body confidence. So that's going to come with a little bit of body image work. But even just people being consistent in training and doing things that they said they would, that improves people's confidence massively. Yeah. Like, if you're constantly saying you're going to do something and not doing it, you're not going to feel great about yourself.
No.
So it's like actually following, like helping people to be accountable and follow through, and that's going to help them feel better about themselves as well.
So what are you telling your clients then with these, image issues?
Body image.
What are you telling them?
So it's less about telling and it's more about asking questions. So like when I'm starting to speak to somebody, then it's not like me highlighting like, okay, you have a negative body image, this is what we're going to do to fix it, because that's just not very nice to be told that. It's asking questions and starting to pick up on the words people are using, maybe their behaviours as well. So if someone's constantly like body checking, for instance, and again, this comes in hand with people wanting to lose fat. If someone is on a fat loss diet and wanting to lose body fat, the likelihood is they're going to use scale weight as a metric. They might be using photos as a metric. They might be using measurements. And then that can lead them then to like looking in the mirror more, pinching their skin, all this kind of stuff. So it's understanding like, okay, yes, your goal right now is to lose body fat, but also we're going to look at getting fitter, getting stronger. Can you get your first bodyweight pull-up? Can you increase your squat by X amount, whatever is like relevant for that person? So it's showing them what their body can do, not just what it looks like. Yeah. And I think that's really important for people on a fat loss journey, because you can get so kind of tunnel visual on, I want to lose weight, I want to lose weight, I want to lose weight. And it's like, actually, okay, what is my body functionality is a huge aspect of body image. And that comes into like, what does your body allow you to do? Okay, well, it allowed you to go to the gym today. It allowed you to and again, it might sound a bit woo-woo, but allowed you to hug your child when they were upset. Or I had a client last week, she sent me a photograph of, she's got 2 little boys, and she was one, I think together combined, they weigh 30 kilograms. And she had one in each arm, and she was like, Joe, thank God I trained, because this is what happens when both boys only want mom and don't want dad. Yeah. And she's walking around the mall with them, and she was like,
that's cool.
It was fun. I was like, that's a real life thing of being strong is going to help you. Mm-hmm.
How do you get your clients to stay motivated when, life's not so, when it's not going so good for them, when they're facing these setbacks or obstacles that they face? How do you keep them on the straight and narrow? How do you keep them motivated?
Yeah, I think really good question, and I think again different for most people. Yeah. One, having a clear goal and understanding what that's going to give them. Again, someone's got a fat loss goal. They might come and say, okay, Joe, I want to feel great to go on holiday, or I might want to feel great to wear this dress at this wedding. But actually understanding what is the slightly deeper why, and it's and it might be for somebody. I got a client once who it was that she wanted to lose this weight so that she's got a 2-year-old. She didn't want her little son constantly seeing mummy on a diet. That was way more powerful for her than fitting in a dress for a wedding. So it's understanding what's important to them, teaching them skills like asking themselves questions, and planning, accountability, and believing in them before they believe in themselves. So a client who I finished up last week, I'd been with, she worked with for 12 months, and she was we were talking at the end of what she got out of it, and she said one of the most things was, she's like, Joe, you believed in me on weeks that I did not think it was possible for me to do what we were setting out to do. So I think that's really important, instilling belief in them when they don't have it in themselves. And understanding that not every week, it's not about having perfect weeks, because that's very rarely going to happen. Anyone can probably not socialise for 8 weeks, not live in a house, live in a room, just do their certain things, but are they going to be very happy? No. And once they get exposed to the outside world, then, so it's understanding what's important to them, understanding what their values are, and that's something that I always do with clients as well, is to work together on, okay, what are your values as a person? What are your top 3 values? How do you want to live your life? Some people it might be family, career, or social connection, whatever it might be, and reminding them of those when they're having a hard week. But also some weeks, like a client might have a lot going on one week, like, which is legitimate, and it's not about like making excuses. It's like, okay, this client's got a lot going on this week with family life, so do you know what, this week we're going to cruise a little bit, and like naming different weeks. Like I'll say to clients, okay, this is going to be a push week. This week you've got pretty empty schedule, like this is when we can push a little bit harder on whatever they're working on. Some weeks might be like, okay, do you know what, this week we're going to cruise a little bit. What 3 things do you think you can do this week? And asking them, not telling them what to do. And I think that's like a really good thing with coaching as well. Is like, yes, at the start you kind of need to get people going and tell them what to do, guide them in the right direction. But once they've got a little like momentum building, is giving them autonomy and saying, okay, you know how energy balance works. We know what your goals are working towards. What out of these like 5 things, what 2 to 3 things do you think you can 100% do this week? So giving it back to them as well, so that they can learn from their own lives.
Yeah, it's funny that, because like life happens, right? It's like sometimes weeks at work are just horrendously busy, and you know, you might not get to the gym one morning, but life happens. Yeah, it's not a setback. You know, just relax. Like you said, cruise this week, and then let's go at it again next week.
Yeah, and there's a really good picture, a little infographic, and that I saw on Instagram once, and it's basically like a load of like circles, and the top line is every circle is full. And it's like, people think consistency is this, where every single circle is like 100%, right? Then there's the line underneath, there's the same amount of circles. Some are like 75%, some are 10%, some are 100%. And it's like both of these things are consistency. And it's not saying that every single week you have to go and give it 100%. Like some weeks, if people have only got 40% and they give that 40%, they've given 100%.
Yeah.
And I think reminding people of that as well, because it's their internal dialogue of like, I didn't do X, I didn't do Y. And it's like, okay, let's forget about that for a second. What did you do? Because like fear of not doing stuff isn't going to drive someone forwards, but if we're thinking of what we have done and what we're working towards, that's going to help someone move forward rather than kind of dwelling on the past.
It's a lot of psychology games, isn't there, with coaching? Yeah, there's a lot of psychological stuff to training your client. Yeah. And that's something that you focus on, right? Like the psychology side of things. That's something that you've been interested in as well and read a lot of. Yeah,
definitely. And it's something that I want to like further, like with my skills as well. Like motivational interviewing is like a skill which I haven't been trained in, but I've read quite a bit about recently. And that's just literally asking questions. But again, it's a skill to it. There's an art to it.
It's the way you ask the questions, right?
Yeah, it's the way you ask them. It's what type of questions that you ask. And it's getting them to almost, say for instance, you want a client to do, you know that this client needs to do X to get their goal, right? Rather than saying, okay, you need to do 10,000 steps, pick something simple. Getting them to think like, okay, we know how this works. What do you think, like, how many do you think you could do this week? Looking at your week, what, like, how active can you be this week? So getting them to almost tell themselves what to do. Because that's a big part of, like, motivation as well, is autonomy. So them deciding themselves, I am doing this because I want to. I'm not doing this because Joe told me to. Like, if someone just follows like a plan, you've got compliance, but that's not, once you remove the coach, they're probably not going to be compliant anymore. So it's like giving them the confidence in themselves to make the decisions that they want to make, that are in line with the person they want to be. So it's mind games. It
is mind games. One big mind game. Yeah. How important is like the psychology side of things for people to perform at the best?
A lot as well. If you think about like visualization, like a lot of sports psychologists will use visualization, won't they, for like visualizing, not even just visualizing winning, but visualizing like how they're going to perform. And I think there was like a study done where there was a basketball player and he was like hooked up to loads of machines, and they got him to visualize basically like scoring free throws. Yeah, you know what I mean, goals. And his muscles and his body was reacting in a very similar way, obviously at like a lesser like magnitude, to how it would respond if he was actually doing that. So the mind, I don't really know too much about like sports performance, but in terms of like mindset of like behavior change, it's huge. It's the main thing. And that's where like a lot of, you're never gonna like if I asked a client the other week, I said, if you didn't like your housemate and they asked you to do the dishes and you hated them, right, you're going to say absolutely not. Like, I'm not doing anything for you. I don't like you. I do not like you. I'm not going to do anything you ask me to do. If you hate yourself and don't like yourself and you're asking yourself to do things, you're not going to do it. So that's like where a lot of, and I don't really like the word self-love because I again think it's a bit like woo-woo, but you have to respect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of that is I do that with clients as well, like getting them to a point where it's like, okay, you don't need to love every aspect of your body. You don't need to love every aspect of who you are, but you need to respect yourself. So it's kind of moving them in that direction as well. Because if they're asking themselves to do something and they don't like themselves, they're never going to do it, just like they wouldn't do it for their housemate that they don't like.
Sticking on the psychology side, and this is just a random question that I don't even have down on my laptop, but I just thought about it. Right, recently, like when we've had the CrossFit Open, for example, there's many people in the gym that before an open workout or even before like a competition, like these members or people would have like anxiety and stress before they do a workout. Like, how can they manage this with psychology side of things? Because for some people it's a massive issue. Like for myself, I'm pretty relaxed. You know, I just focus on controlling what I can control. You know, I just have my little routine. You know, make sure it's a nice warm up, stretch, and then I'm just pretty calm about it. Whereas most people, they do have this stress and anxiety before a big workout. So what can they do to manage this stress, like psychology-wise?
I think it's, so like with stress and anxiety, like with life, there's always going to be stressful things in life. And especially with anxiety as well, I think it's like, it's a massive spectrum. Like people who have got debilitating anxiety, that's completely different to feeling a bit nervous before you go and do a competition. So I think it's one, how you talk about it. If someone is constantly telling themselves in their mind, I get really bad performance anxiety, I'm going to do rubbish, I'm not going to do very well, they're going to prove themselves right. Because like self-fulfilling prophecy of like, if that's the story you're telling yourself all the time, you're going to prove yourself right. So I think it's working on their mindset beforehand. And also, nerves and excitement show up in the body physiologically in a very similar way. So like if someone is feeling a bit nervous before like the CrossFit Open or a competition or something, that feeling in the body is quite similar physiologically and psychologically to excitement. So if you start to, it's not about lying to yourself, it's like, okay, I'm a bit nervous, that means that I care about something. How cool is that? There's loads of people that go through their life probably just on this like plain sailing where they don't get excited, they don't get nervous, which means they're probably not doing anything that they really care about, or they're not really pushing themselves. So I think it's how you think about it and also how you frame it. Like if you're telling yourself, I'm never going to do a competition because I just get too nervous and I fail, then you're not going to get anywhere. But telling yourself like, I care about how I do about this, but I've put in the work, I've trained, and also I'm not going to lose my job if I don't, snatch a PP. Like having that kind of like making it like relative to their life. Like I remember before the Turf Games last year, I forgot who said it now, one of the coaches from Alioth said, like, it's a bit of fun. You're going into this, no one's gonna like lose their job if they don't do well in the Turf Games.
True.
So it's like not belittling it, but thinking like, actually in the grand scheme of my life, like how cool is it I get to do this? So I think it's just preparing themselves mentally. And also if you're going into something and you've put the work in beforehand, then trust your body. Trust your body and trust your mind. But I think there's a difference between like obviously like severe anxiety and then like nerves before you're going to do something that you care about. Nerves mean you care about it.
Yeah, that's true. This like self-talk and mindset, like do you see a positive self-talk and mindset in most of your clients or a negative one? Because again, I see it in the gym. There's a lot of people that have this negative self-talk and, I can't do this, I can't do that. They come up to me, I can't do this. I was like, you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when people...
I see two different sides at the gym,
Yeah, and like everyone's... up until the point that like people in the gym have got different backgrounds, different upbringings, and so much of that like inner self-talk comes from your upbringing. Like it comes from like I was speaking to a friend about it recently, like her parents are both very negative people. They'll always find the negative thing rather than find the positive thing. And if that's what you've grown up with, that you're probably going to have a bit of a negative outlook. But you can change it. It's not like it's not part of your like hardwiring. You can change it. Clients that come to me, I think they negatively, a lot of them have like quote unquote like failed diets before or started and had like a month and then not stuck to it. So they don't have much belief in themselves, and that can like show up in negative self-talk. So it's explain to them one, the impact that has, teaching them, and you giving them like let them borrow your belief, like my belief in them first. Teaching them how to reframe. Like reframing is probably one of the best things, a skill that you can learn. Like if something happens it's like a little bit of the glass half full, like half empty type of thing. So yeah, a lot of negative self-talk, but showing them that that's not going to get them anywhere. And yes, they've got evidence that they have tried to lose weight before or tried to stick at training plans before and it hasn't worked. So it's just every time that they do something well, showing them that, okay, you've now got evidence that you can go on a staycay for 2 nights and get back to the gym on a Monday morning, or you've got evidence that you can drop a couple of kilograms in the first month. Okay, let's repeat that. So it's like congratulating and rewarding and supporting and showing them, like holding a mirror up to what they are doing well. So it gives them encouragement to move on.
Interesting. There's a lot of interesting sides to what you do, right?
Yeah. It's like just people are fascinating, aren't they?
Yeah, right. This is probably why I started the podcast as well.
Yeah, like having I have so many interesting chats with my clients about like random stuff and like people's perspectives on things, like, and also as well here, like people's different cultures, upbringings, like what, you know, like how much as well, like how much their parents' relationship with food and exercise has on them. Like I had a client who went back home to South Africa recently, and she's 42 and her mum is 64, I think. No, older than that, 74. And her mum was commenting on like how she went back home to 2.5 weeks. She'd last 2 years ago, she'd never ever been to the gym in South Africa when she went back home. So she was training like 3 to 4 times a week when she was back home. She was like being mindful of her nutrition. We were having like a cruise 2 weeks. So it wasn't about her being in like a deficit for those 2 weeks. It was just about her enjoying family time, everything in moderation, etc., etc. And her mom commented, she was like, I feel like, you know, you've transformed, like. And she was telling me about her dad. Like her dad is obese and has been for, I mean, like 20, 30 years, and he's got a poor relationship with food, and that had impacted her relationship with food, but only now, from the work that we've done, she realises that. And then she started talking to me about a colleague, and she was like, Joe, I really want this colleague to come to you, like, you could really help her. And I said, the thing is, like, people, you can't make people change. They have to be in the right mindset to change. Yeah. Like, it's like I've had people talk to me about, like, their partners before, or their husbands, and say, like, oh, Joe, I really want him to, like, you know, start exercising. And it's like, be the lighthouse. Don't be a tugboat. Like, no one wants to be constantly told, like, you need to do this, you need to do that, let alone from your partner. Yeah.
And if you're stubborn like me, then if people are telling you what to do, you'll just go the other way.
Yeah, same. I hate being told what to do.
Me too.
That's why I'm self-employed.
Yeah, I'm so stubborn. That's true. We'll touch on the nutrition side of things, because I think, like you just mentioned then, like with diet sort of cultures, like especially me when I was younger, I had to sit down and eat what was on my plate. And it was always a big portion. Like, portion size is probably relative to how you've been brought up, but most people are brought up with a big portion size.
Especially as a northerner.
And I couldn't leave the table. Yeah, exactly. And I couldn't leave the table until I'd eaten so much of my food, if not all of it.
Yeah.
So how important is, you know, relationship with food, and how does this sort of diet culture come into it?
Yeah.
With the, like, you know, the emotional eating side of things as well.
It's huge, and it's a spectrum as well. Like on one side you've got clinical eating disorders, so you've got things like bulimia, anorexia, and binge eating disorder. In the middle somewhere, you've got a healthy relationship with food, and it's everyone, like people are on that spectrum, and like anyone that fits into the eating disorder category, so that's things like binge eating disorder, they need clinical help, which is when they're I'm not qualified, it's beyond my scope. So I've had people come to me before, and I've recognised that they're beyond, like, it's out of my scope of practice to help them. They need like therapeutic, clinical psychology help. But in the fitness industry, like relationship with food is rife, and because it's like a lot of people glamorize like bodybuilding, for instance. A lot of people that are bodybuilders and step on stage in that sport have eating disorders.
Yeah. And well, straight away you'd associate bodybuilding with chicken and rice.
Yeah.
Straight away.
Yeah. And a lot of them come out of that in their off season and have binge eating disorder.
Yeah.
But they think that's just their off season, so they think that's like normal, and it's probably normal in that industry, and even not at that kind of like bodybuilding level. In like general population, like, you know, I grew up in the 90s where like people were like magazines, all of that kind of stuff, constantly commenting on women's bodies, well, and men's body, but more so women's. Constantly, you know, someone would get packed on a beach and it would be some cellulite on the front of a magazine, or like I remember there's a famous clip, I forgot what program she was on, but when Victoria Beckham had her first job, had Brooklyn, and she was on and this guy, I can't remember who it was, he got like bathroom scales out and made her weigh herself on national TV.
Wow.
And it's like, we grew up around that.
Yeah, it's normal.
And that was like, people were laughing and joking like it was some sort of joke. Oh, well, let's see what weight you are. Like, that's just not okay. One, that would hopefully would never happen now. No. But like, that's not okay. And that makes people have a difficult relationship with food and with their body. So it's huge. And I think it's not talked about that much. I think it's starting to get more talked about. And like, but personal trainers, nutrition coaches, we're sort of like the first line of defense, if that's the right word. Yeah, like to recognize and kind of spot when people do need more help. And I think like being a couple of years in now, like I've got the confidence to say, actually, do you know what, I can't help this, but I'm not, if I care about this person's well-being and this person's health, I'm not the best person to help them. And I've got people like in my network who I would refer them to. So it's just like being mindful of that. But like, you don't get taught about that in your personal training qualification. You like, that's not.
I can't remember. Mine was so long ago. I can't remember.
It's not in there.
I think there was a little section
on eating disorders.
Oh, not on eating disorders. No, just nutrition. Right?
Yeah, on nutrition. Yeah. But so yeah, people's relationship with food, and it's all about intent. So like for instance, I could have a client who the healthiest thing for them to do could be to go out on a Tuesday and have a pizza, right? I could have another client who the healthiest thing for them to do is to say no to that pizza or have a bit of a pizza and some salad. For the person who the healthiest thing to do is to go and have that pizza, that they could have not socialized in the last 3 to 6 months because they don't want to eat outside of their like calorie tracked nutrition. But what they're actually losing out on is social connection, which is a huge factor of like health. So it's about intent. Like someone can do exactly the same behavior, but if the intent behind that is different, then it's can be healthy for one person and like not healthy for the other. But again, it's not black and white. Yeah. So it's understanding that, again, picking up on people's language, how they speak about food. Is someone constantly saying like burgers, pizzas, all this kind of food is like bad? I'm a bad person if I eat that. And like my job is to educate them and say, okay, yeah, we don't want to eat pizzas and burgers every single day. We want to make sure we've got a balanced diet, but we don't want to call foods good or bad. We want to refer them. Okay, that's a bit of a calorie dense meal. This is a bit more nutrient dense. But you know what? Everything can play a part in like a healthy, well balanced diet. Yeah. And once people understand energy balance and understand what their energy needs are as well, I think it can really help them.
I think that's important with nutrition. I think obviously a diet is a short-term thing, and if you're going to do a diet, it's going to start and finish with, you know, you're losing some weight. But I think for most clients that you see, it's just trying to embed this healthy, balanced lifestyle that they need with nutrition. Yeah. It's not like this diet's going to work, that diet's going to work. It's something that they can maintain for a lifetime. Yeah, like if your diet's got, like I often say, like if your diet does not need a name. Like your diet is just the food that you eat. Yeah, exactly. Like you don't need a diet with a name. You don't need to do these fads. And that comes with like a little bit of just basic like nutrition education, like for them to understand about macronutrients, about micronutrients, about what their lifestyle looks like and what their energy needs are. And like, it's why I hate when people do like what I eat in a day videos, like fitness influencers, because if you've got a spin instructor, for instance, who's teaching 7 classes a day, doing their own training, like the energy that they're expending in comparison to someone who's sat at a desk for 8 to 9 hours a day is completely worlds apart. Yeah. So it's irrelevant. Like you don't want to, and that's why I don't give people meal plans. It's about understanding like, you know, I could quite happily eat a stir fry every night, but a client might hate stir fry. So it's not about telling them what to eat. It's like, okay, what do you enjoy? These are the fundamentals of nutrition and what we need to include in our diet for a healthy diet. What do you enjoy? And it's like getting them to get curious, do their shopping, look at what they're buying, and then also like having the time to, and like planning the time in to make that. So that they're not coming home on a Wednesday night or every single night of the week, oh, I'm not going to, you know, I've got nothing in the house or I've got nothing, I'm just going to order this, I'm just going to order that. Yeah. And everyone's so different when it comes to the preferences and diet. What's your favourite meal? My favourite meal? Depends on my mood, but I like a good pizza. Yeah. like Blue Pizzeria
Nice.
down at Kite Beach.
Oh.
It's a nice place. What's like a common misconception about nutrition that you encounter among your clients?
Good and bad foods is definitely a big one.
Yeah.
Like just like
This is
labeling
good,
foods.
this is bad.
Yeah. A common miss. That's a good question. I think the amount, like what people's energy needs are as well. I think that's like a huge thing for people to understand, like how much they're moving in a day, what their energy needs are.
And especially if they're doing some sort of training with you as well.
Yeah.
They need to be able to perform when they are training.
Yeah.
So
So it's like learning around about that as well, what their lifestyle looks like.
Yeah.
I think a massive misconception is that like for somebody to lose weight, they literally can only eat like salads. Or another thing as well, like intermittent fasting. Because I'm not against it, but I think like people think it's this like be all and end all thing. Like I'm just not going to eat till 12 o'clock. It's like, okay, you're just skipping breakfast.
Yeah.
We don't need to name it.
breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Yeah, I love breakfast.
Yeah.
I love breakfast.
You know, I didn't used to eat breakfast back in the day.
No, I didn't either.
I used to force myself to eat it, and now it's just like, I can't wait for
Yeah.
breakfast now.
And I think it's all like, especially a lot of my clients have got kids, and it's like, okay, what would you encourage your child to eat? Like, you're probably not going to eat far off that in terms of like, are you going to try and get a well-balanced breakfast into your child before it goes to school? Probably. Okay, you should probably have the same as well.
Well, you're hoping so. You're hoping they don't stop off at McDonald's drive-thru before they get to
Yeah,
school.
exactly. Like, oh, do you know what? I'm going to have 2 meals today. And it's like, okay, some days it might look like that if you've got a busy life, but also a little bit more planning, a little bit more education. Like you don't need, and I think especially for women, like a lot of women think like, I just need to eat. If I just eat salads and I just cut out all of these, cut out carbs, then, you know, I'm gonna drop weight. And it's like, but what happens then when you're exposed to a pizza? You've put this thing on a pedestal and you've given it more value by telling yourself you can't have it. So once you're around it, you're probably going to overeat on it. Whereas if you just have a little bit of everything that you like every now and again, then balance, you know?
Balance in life. How do you approach helping your clients with like a food addiction, or your clients that are emotionally eating and you've come to find out that they are emotionally eating or they have some sort of food addiction?
Yeah, I think just be mindful of like how they, like I had a client who said she was addicted to sugar, and
aren't we all?
No. So food addiction, it's interesting. There's a lot of research coming out about food addiction now, but at the moment, from what we know from like the evidence and the research, you can't actually get addicted to foods. It's not like drugs. So I think it's one, helping them change their language and understanding that they're choosing that, in the sense of it's not like they're an addict that's literally physiologically they can't go without that certain drug, for instance. It's not the same as that. It might, but then understanding for them, it might feel like an addiction. So one, working through them carefully on that, because again, you can't just turn around to someone and saying like, yeah, but you're not addicted, you just need to try harder. Like that's not gonna. I had a client with this who was like, said that she was addicted to sugar, and it's like actually what she was using sugar for was an emotional crutch. So getting to the bottom of that, just through asking them questions about how that shows up, what does it look like, okay, and then breaking it back and like, is it a certain situation? So is it environmental? Is it actually, it's that 2-hour block when the kids have gone down for a nap, it's before the husband gets home, she's just been with the kids all day, she's emotionally she's exhausted, she's physically like just drained, and she hasn't had a great well-balanced lunch, so she's a little bit hungry, so she's in the chocolate drawer. So it's understanding like what environmental factors are at play there as well. And then really good thing for that is journaling. So getting them to get curious about their behavior, how they feel beforehand, and then building like what's called like a soothe system. So for instance, that a client that's emotionally eating, he or she is probably using food to soothe them, to self-soothe. So it's like looking at other ways that they can do that. Things like skills like surf the urge. So talking to them about like, okay, if you think you want this certain thing, you want this piece of chocolate, you want this chocolate in the cupboard, I have to have it now. Creating a little bit of a pause before that. So again, working them through that. And it sounds so simple.
I need this.
Yeah. So creating a little bit of a pause through that, and then saying, okay, do you know what? In 30 minutes, if I still want it, I'm going to go and have some. But then taking that thing, whatever it might be, like I did this with a client over Easter who loved mini eggs. And I was like, okay, you love mini eggs. if you love something, you will give it the time and the respect that it deserves. So take your mini eggs out, put them in a bowl.
Caress it.
I mean, not like that. Put them in a bowl, sit at a table, and be present when you eat them. Again, it might sound a bit OTT, but 9 times out of 10 when people are emotionally eating, they're grabbing something out of a cupboard, they're sitting on a sofa, they've got Netflix on, they've got their phone. Someone might, they might have like all this different like stimulus going on, TV, phone, food. So they're not paying attention to anything that they're actually doing. Is that you?
That's me, yeah. Maybe I'm an emotional eater.
Emotional eating every now and again is normal. It's absolutely fine. But if it's the only thing that someone's using to manage their emotions, negative or positive emotions, then that's when it needs a little bit of help. So again, thinking about what their values are. Is this in line with the person that I want to be? I've had a bit of chocolate. Do I really need to go back for some more? Or actually, I can have that chocolate tomorrow. Yeah. But often when people are emotionally eating certain foods, it's to do with their emotions, but it's all to do with keeping that food out, like off limits. I can't have that piece of chocolate. I can't have that chocolate bar. So whenever they allow themselves to have it, they're going to overeat on it because they don't know when they're going to allow themselves to have it again. Yeah. So building like a soothe system, which takes time, and it's again different to everybody. For some people, it might be going and journaling about their feelings for 10 minutes. For another person, it might be...
All the guys will find that hard.
Exactly. But...
All your male clients are struggling.
Exactly. But understanding that everyone has that every now and again, and it's not, that doesn't mean that they're broken. There's nothing wrong with them. It's like, and then understanding what else they can do to soothe themselves. It might be that when a boss is like, annoyed you at work and you come home and you're really annoyed at your boss, rather than just be like, oh, I'm going to have X, Y, Z. It's like, okay, actually, do you know what? I'm going to take myself out. I'm going to give myself a nice 15-minute walk, come back in. If I still want the thing, I'll have the thing. But I'm going to do this thing for me first. Yeah. And like trying to be present.
How important, you touched on it, how important is journaling? And what things do you focus on when you're getting your clients to
journal,
yeah.
It's basically like free therapy. It's not going to replace therapy,
yeah.
Disclaimer. But it's building self-awareness, so it's getting to know yourself. So I'll give clients like journal prompts, depending on what I think that they need when they're doing it. So some clients will do it in the morning, sometimes they'll do it in the evening, sometimes clients will do both, whatever's like best for them. Yeah. So I'll give them prompts to start off with, because like if someone was just tasked with like an empty page and a pen, that's quite daunting, especially for someone that's never really had any like inner reflection before. So I'll give them prompts to start off with, and that, like, I don't read that. That's their journal. It's their thing. Like, they might come to me and say, "Oh, this came up when I was doing this," or "This came up," but it's for them to kind of, it's their little thing. But prompts can definitely help to start off with.
So just give us a prompt. Like, what would a prompt
be like? It might be like if someone was going, like, say for instance, if a client was going to do a talk at work and they were getting a bit nervous about it, I would say, like, a good thing to ask yourself is, how do you want to show up at that talk? Or how do you want to show up today? Or like, what one thing can I do today to make this a great day? And if at the end of the day, reflect on the day. So it's like what one thing am I grateful for today? And like, really mean it. Don't just think of like the first thing that came to your head, but like, okay, what one thing? And it might be that they went for a walk, or like, what am I proud of this week that I did? And it might be that they, I don't know, set a boundary with someone, or like that they said no to something that wasn't really aligned with the person they want to be, or they actually went to the gym when they really couldn't be bothered to, but they've now given themselves evidence that they can do something when they don't want to do. What other ones?
Are all your clients journaling?
Probably 90%.
Yeah. And it's a daily thing, is it?
Yeah. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect.
No.
But like, everyone has like a weekly journal, a weekly review that I send out, but a lot of them will journal most days. Yeah.
How would you measure like a client's progress?
With them, so it depends what they're working on. It depends what's like, what's progress for one person isn't progress for another. So one, that they're becoming a better version of themselves in their own words. So like, I had a client recently who, she spoke to me about like her trip back to South Africa. She did that same trip like exactly 12 months ago, and when she came back and we were chatting through it, and she was filling in her like monthly review for that month, for her, we're working on fat loss, but we're also working on reframing her relationship with food, getting fitter and getting stronger. So when she came back that month of April, she did the first 2 weeks she was in South Africa, and she managed to maintain her progress so far in terms of her weight loss, which she was super proud of. Then as soon as she got back, because we had like a 2-week cruise period, and then as soon as she got back, she's like, right, I'm going to go back to being in deficit now and focus on fat loss as one of my goals again. That transition for her was absolutely like huge, because in the past that would have taken her like 2 months to get back around to like, okay, this is important to me, I want to get back around to it. So she was really proud of that. Asking them what they're proud of. So if like how would they have showed up 6 months ago? Their consistency, their being able to do hard things. So being able to like if people only go and train when they really feel like it, or people only eat in line with like their nutritional goals when they really feel like it, then no one's ever going to get anywhere. So it's for them to determine in their own eyes what's classed as progress for them. Obviously, if someone's like got a fat loss goal, it's my job to get them that goal in a healthy way. So that's obviously a marker. Strength, like a lot of my clients come to me and they've always used exercise as a way to like burn calories. So it's a mindset shift for that. I see that as progress in my clients. Yep. As like, actually, do you know what? This week I'm going to go for a 50 kilogram squat, or this week I'm going to try and, hip thrust my body weight, whatever it might be. That's progress for me, because I find that exciting. Yeah. For them.
Did you journal this morning or today?
No, I'll be journaling this afternoon actually.
Do it in the afternoon, do you?
Yeah. Evenings.
What are your goals?
What are my goals? Oh, yeah. Business, professionally, personal.
Any.
What
are your top three goals or three things that you're working on?
At the moment, in terms of like personal, like I'm loving training at the moment. I feel like I
see you coming to the gym alone, doing that extra stuff.
Yeah. And
here's some food if you want some food, by the way. Kindly sponsored by Practical. The flat tracks are really nice.
Look very good. Training at the moment, I'm really, really enjoying. Got in a massive bit of a funk last year with training for like a few months. I did a half marathon, and then I just didn't really have any goals and just was a bit lost. And then I came back to life. So training, I've got a few goals there, which is exciting. Business wise, my goal is to become fully online. That's like my next goal in the next 6 months. So I have a few clients in person that see like Monday to Friday in the mornings, which I love, and I like that structure because I get up. I have clients from like 7 till 10, and it's like, and I really enjoy that like social connection as well. Yep. Like especially working for yourself and doing a lot online, like it can be a lonely old place at times.
I can't imagine doing my job online.
Yeah,
that's exactly why I do what I do, because I love speaking to people and meeting people.
And I think that's always been a goal. But then I think if I did take that away from me, I'd be interested to see how long before I actually took a few more clients back on. So let's see. Which one of those things that you kind of have to get there to then be able to go back. So that's a goal for me at the moment. Working a lot on business. So like I've had a business mentor last year, and I want to go back into a business mentorship again. Okay. Just having somebody there to kind of, again, like self-employed. I've got no business partner. Having someone to I miss being in a meeting with colleagues and getting really excited about like an idea that you've got. Like I was saying,
I love that.
I want to start my own podcast, but I need someone to almost bounce the ideas off.
Why don't you just start your own networking event?
I mean, I think I need to focus on my own business first.
But I'd definitely come. Yeah. I love just sitting down with like mindful people and just, like you said, just bouncing ideas, and then before you know it, you've just created something. And
so I think the first year that I set up my business and stuff, I became and it was in line of after COVID. I've always been really sociable, very sociable job, and my whole life changed. And it was only this last 6 months that I was thinking about it, that in my journal, that I became quite a different person. Like even when I first came to Alioth and stuff, 3-4 years ago, I would always go up and meet people, but I kind of my personality changed a lot, and I think that was a mixture of COVID, working for yourself, not being around that many people. Then my whole identity changed as well. Becoming fitness person, or who does that as a job, not just Joe goes to the gym quite a lot. It was, so I think I've kind of struggled a little bit with that, with my identity, making sure I'm being me, being my most authentic self. I think that's I think that's hard, especially when you are your business, and I've changed quite a lot. I often find it quite difficult going back to the UK because I'm a completely different person to I was 8 years ago. And I know that's loads of people are. So kind of just really leaning into, okay, who is Joe now?
Yeah.
So that's.
And I guess that's constantly changing, right? Because you're constantly learning, constantly growing.
Yeah.
For the better.
Yeah, exactly. And then just like learning more, like I think just again like with the whole reading books and listening to podcasts, you can get a bit where you just like do it too much and you're not actually taking action on your own stuff. But getting some sort of professional psychology, or whether it's like a CBT, like a cognitive behavioural therapy qualification, something in that which I know will just help me help clients more.
It's funny you talk about going back to the UK, because I've not been back to the UK for 3 years now.
At all? Like for a holiday?
No, and I do feel like, same as you, like, I don't know, I just feel like here I'm developing and moving on so much, and then when I go home I see people that I'd have seen 3 years ago and they're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed, and it just depresses me, as well as the weather.
Yeah, I mean the weather's not great. I think I regress. Like this is the thing as well. When like where if you go back to your childhood home, or like you're around your parents and stuff. Like I like go back home and like I love my family.
Do you fall into like bad habits again?
Not necessarily bad thoughts. Like I'm like, oh, that's not like, or I'll like start like arguing with my mum about something random, which I genuinely don't really care about. But that's what I would have been like 8 years ago, whereas now I have way more patience. So it's like just those kind of things. Like definitely less so now, like the last 6 months. But like the first time I went back after COVID and when I changed my job, I was going back for my brother's wedding and I was a bit like, oh, this is a bit weird. I want to see all my family friends. I've like changed my job, and I don't know, like I knew my parents were a bit like not funny about me changing my job, but in their eyes I quit a very good job that had like, you know, a bit of a title and all this kind of stuff. So I think like identity is quite a big deal, quite a big thing.
Yeah.
And knowing who you are.
And journaling helps with that.
It does. I'm going to send you some journal prompts.
Let's do it. I think Lloyd should start journaling with Joe.
Yeah.
Journaling with Joe.
Journaling with Joe.
There we are.
That could be my podcast.
Perfect.
That's quite a good name, actually.
I'm definitely up for some journaling. I don't do it currently, but I'm definitely
I think you'd like it.
Open-minded to do stuff like that.
Just like a little, literally 2 minutes. Start for 2 minutes. I'll send you a couple of journal prompts that you can do tonight.
For people that are listening or watching and who are interested, how can they get in contact with you?
Instagram, so at jofarrerfitness.
That will pop up just here.
That's the best place. Slide into my DMs, have a look at my content. We'll have a little call, have a little chat. I have a call with everyone who reaches out, just one to make sure that I'm the right person to help them. Yeah. And that I want to work with them. Yeah. That's a really big thing. Like the coaching is about relationship, and if they don't like me or I don't like them, it's never going to work. Yeah. So there needs to be like mutual respect there. So yeah, slide into my DMs. Let's have a chat. Talk about your goals. Talk about what you're struggling with, and then I can talk you through how like coaching works. What I think is going to be the best route for you, and then we can just get you to be an awesome human.
A better human.
A better human. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good note to finish on.
Thank you
Thanks
for having me.
for coming on to my podcast. It's actually been really good. Yeah, you really surprised me.
I like to surprise people.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
A big thank you to our main podcast sponsor, Practical, for supplying guests with some tasty snacks, and you guys for watching on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe and let us know what you think by dropping a message in the comment section below.